The Oklahoma Sooners face their first true test of the 2023 season this week with SMU. What needs to happen on Saturday night, and how will some injuries affect the game on the field? We'll talk about that on today's episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase over at Gametime. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. My buddy here is Josh Helmer. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. You can also hear him Monday through Friday on the KRF Sports app from 9 to noon. And Josh, a big matchup. I mean, it's not one that moves the needle like Georgia would have if that stayed on the schedule. But I think SMU, just especially with their move to the ACC coming down the road, has a little bit more, I don't know, needle moving potential than what we might have thought when that game was first put on the schedule.
Yeah, I'd say so. SMU looked good in week one, and Preston Stone did some nice things. Hudson is a receiver that obviously Oklahoma fans are familiar with. So, yeah, this is not the 5-touchdown favorite game that you were in a week ago. Now, you're still a legitimate, deep two-score plus favorite in this game, and Oklahoma is expected to go out and play well and perform well because, well, it's at home and you're much more talented, but the talent gap has shrunk from substantially from last week to this. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's relative to last week, safe to say that, of course, this is a much more legitimate challenge or test for Oklahoma.
Well, I think a team like SMU, even though maybe for much of the last 40 years, they haven't had a big national presence, it's still a brand that people kind of recognize a little bit, even as a team that's been a group of 5 team since the dissolving of the Southwest Conference. They've kind of been that, second tier of team. It's still SMU. It's still Dallas. It's the Mustangs. It's Eric Dickerson's team. There's still a little bit of juice to that program and that brand, even if they haven't always been really, really good. And maybe this is, me having grown up, went to high school and college in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, listening to, Dallas radio on my commutes to college, on my commutes to work, and just being bombarded with SMU. I say bombarded, hearing SMU talked about. But yeah, it's at least a brand that I feel like moves the needle, and that's why they're getting that invite to the ACC. They're getting an opportunity in this latest round of realignment. So I do think the team on the field is improving. They're adding talent. I mean, the Jordan Hudson addition, that's huge for them. Stone, he has been good. I mean, he was a 4-star quarterback. My guy Bryant Cruz laid it out on Sooners Wire, what kind of player he was and prospect. I mean, he had a lot of big-time offers, Alabama, Georgia, just to name a couple of them. So that's a quarterback that potentially has the talent to make life difficult for you, and they've got the skill talent to do so as well.
No, they do. It's obviously talent-wise is a big step up, gigantic step up from last week. And when you think about the whole ACC angle here, big picture, this is a chance for SMU to make a splash, right? I mean, that's always going to be true, group of 5 versus power 5. But now with just the added wrinkle that, well, SMU is not going to remain a group of 5 and they're going to the ACC. And, that kind of really all 3, Cal, Stanford, and SMU, are strange in some ways to add to the ACC, but SMU's trying to make this thing look like it makes perfect sense for the ACC. And one way to do that is to come out, play well, and shock Oklahoma this weekend, right? I mean, this would be the kind of first, I guess, step toward, hey, this is a program that, as you mentioned, John, has some, I mean, it's got some dubious history, we know, obviously, with the Pony Express and everything, but it's got a famous storied history as well, right? To kind of go along with that and before that. So this would be a nice little knock on the door that maybe SMU, with this jump to the ACC, with what that can mean in recruiting and financially down the road, that maybe this is the first step toward SMU being a legitimate national player going forward again. So with that said, what are some of the keys for Oklahoma in this game? What needs to happen versus SMU? I think most people, based off the feedback that we see and get and hear, is that the pass rush, right? I mean, first and foremost, isn't that what Oklahoma fans want to see? Is Oklahoma get after Stone and go attack this passer?
Yeah, you got to get after him because the skill talent on the outside is better. So you're not going to have a long time to cover. So you got to make sure that you do get some pass rush, you get some pressure on the quarterback and keep him contained a little bit because he's an athletic guy that can make plays with his legs. He can throw the ball outside the pocket as well. So yeah, we got to start seeing an improved effectiveness. We'll just say that of the pass rush. It's hard to judge the pass rush based on last week, but if we start seeing more pressures, more quarterback hits, more sacks, and even effective pressure that causes the ball to be thrown away or an ill thrown football, I think that's going to be a key to this game, especially on defense and the corners. They've got to continue to play well. Woody Washington, Gentry Williams, they played really well last week. They got to take a step in a better direction and continue to play well against tougher competition. I think Oklahoma will probably give up a couple plays here and there, but if they play with the same kind of tenacity that they did last week, I feel good about the coverage unit being able to hold up on their end of the bargain.
Well, and maybe you just answered the question right there, John, but I feel like for a lot of Sooner fans, again, the number one thing, if you said, okay, hey, what's one thing you want to see this weekend? If we're talking position groups, right? If it's not the, hey, go force turnovers and,
right,
some of your typical things that you would want to see from a football team and a championship football team. If it's, hey, which position group, right? One item related to a position group that you really, really want to see this week. I feel like a lot of it would be, again, that pass rush. But for you, is there one or a couple of things that, and probably this will sprinkle into keys as well, but what are one or a couple of things that you really, really want to see from Oklahoma?
Let's talk about that after I talk to you about our friends over at Gametime. The Gametime app is the best place to get your tickets for game day. I'm looking at it right now here on the Gametime app, and you can get some pretty great seats, for as low as $33 for this weekend's matchup against SMU. The weather should be much better than what it was this past Saturday at Arkansas State. You get a little bit of the early prime time kick. So go to the Gametime app, download it, use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. You get $20 off. Great thing about this is as you're looking at the tickets, you get to see where each seat is going to be looking at or what they're going to be looking at when you're in your seat. So a beautiful app. It works great, easy to use. Again, use promo code LOCKEDONCollege at the Gametime app today, available in your app store to get $20 off. So a couple things I want to see out of Oklahoma. I want to see that coverage unit stay locked down. Again, as you increase the competition and increase the talent that you're going up against, you want to make that jump. And we're all really, really high on Gentry Williams. We're all really, really high on Woody Washington and Josiah Wagner and Peyton Bowen and Billy Bowman and Reggie Pearson and Key Lawrence and Robert Spears Jennings and down the line. We're all really high on what Jay Valai and Brandon Hall have put together for this secondary. We just got to see it continue to show up and continue to show out. Does that mean they're not ever going to get beat? Not necessarily, but it means, okay, you got a 3rd and long, you shut it down. You don't allow the first down reception. You have, an opportunity to get off the field on 4th down. You make it happen. I mean, this is a team that is going to throw the ball and they'll throw it effectively. You just have to minimize the impact of those attempts. Whether it's, okay, they threw a 5-yard hitch. Well, you got to wrap up and tackle. I mean, a lot of it's going to come down to doing the little things well every single week for this team, even as they increase in competition.
For me, and this is, again, of the vein of, hey, go take away the football. I mean, you could say this every single week, but just because of the level of competition to open versus stepping up to the plate here a little bit with SMU. I'm going to just be watching both lines of scrimmage for Oklahoma. Pass rush, again, we've talked about that already, John, but, larger than that, just across the board, defensively, offensive line, how Oklahoma runs the ball. Can they go crease a couple more runs? I'd like to see that from Oklahoma. That to me is a big key in this football game. And then I'm looking at the box score from this past weekend, John, and Oklahoma saw Arkansas State run the football 23 times for just 48 yards. So 2.1 yards per rush. I'm watching that number big time again this week. So even beyond, hey, can they go get to the quarterback, which, yeah, we'd all love to see that too. Go get to the quarterback, get him down, pressure him, all those sorts of things. It leads to an interception, whatever. I also want to see Oklahoma own that line of scrimmage, keep that yard per rush down, and just physically go dominate up front, right? I mean, show me that this is an Oklahoma team as we start to raise the bar a little bit here that, John, they are going to go win the LOS every week.
And it's going to be an important matchup for the defensive line against the run game because SMU ran the ball well last week against Louisiana Tech. It's going to be an important matchup for the offensive line against SMU's run defense because they stopped the run again really well against Louisiana Tech. You talked about what Oklahoma did get to Arkansas State. Well, SMU was even better against Louisiana Tech. And we could say it's just Louisiana Tech, but then again, it's also just Arkansas State. Well, SMU held La Tech to 1.2 yards per carry on 24 attempts, allowed only 28 yards rushing. So, that's an impressive number, for an SMU team. The defensive line coached by one Calvin Thibodeau. So it's an intriguing matchup, I think, in the trenches on both sides of the ball. If you're Oklahoma, you might have a little bit of tough sledding running the football. So you need to be able to win, and especially on third and short, fourth and short, if you have to go for it, you got to win some of those matchups. And yeah, maybe they don't have this big time, total in rushing yards this week, but as long as it's effective, it's getting them into short down and distances like second and short, third and short. I think it's going to create more manageable opportunities for the passing offense to hit big plays because that is an area that Louisiana Tech was able to take advantage of SMU a little bit. They threw for, sorry, I had the stats right here and then I lost it. Louisiana Tech threw for 241 yards, completed 63.6% of their passes on just 33 attempts. So not a terrible yards per attempt average as well. So SMU potentially could be had in the air. It might be a little bit tougher sledding on the ground.
That's interesting. And what they did defensively against the run, maybe in part is because of what they didn't do in the passing defense department. But that's impressive all the same, right? Which tells us, again, number one, really just both sides. But I feel like, okay, well, let's see a receiver have a big day then if they can get got in the passing game, all right? If Antrell Anthony, if you are my number one wide receiver in 2023, I'm out here banging the drum for you, buddy. Then go out and have a big day. Or Nick Anderson, Jaden Gibson, if you guys are taking those types of sophomore jumps that we think, okay, let's see it against, again, a defense that got heated up a little bit in the passing department. And then, beyond that, show me that you're not La Tech, right, running the football. If you're Oklahoma, show me that, hey, SMU, it's going to be a little bit different ball game when you're matching up with, Oklahoma's offensive lineman up front.
Yeah, and Oklahoma should run the ball better. That should be a matchup that they should be able to win. Now, Calvin Thibodeau is going to get some dudes, and he got one in an Oklahoma transfer, but the talent favors Oklahoma. And if that's the case, then you should be able to win your matchups up front and be able to run the ball. Other thing I want to see happen this Saturday is just another fast start. The offense just getting out there and clicking from snap one. Based on what we saw on Saturday, they're clicking right now. If they can continue that momentum in this game on Saturday and just execute the little things, I think that goes a long way to helping them secure a victory. Get off to a fast start, get up early, and then let the defense do their thing, get after the quarterback and prevent them from being able to have favorable game scripts where they're going to be able to stay balanced. No, get up early, make them throw the football, and try to play catch up.
And because I think Hudson is a pretty good receiver, to me, if they try and, line him up with a Gentry Williams, all right, here's kind of the first moment, Gentry, for you to show John and myself and the Sooner Nation that, yeah, you're going to be a nice little piece opposite Woody Washington. So if we're talking keys to the game, I think slowing him down in general will be one of the big keys for Oklahoma defensively. And then just, bigger picture for Oklahoma, what the ramifications of that could mean for the rest of the season. That's going to be something I'm going to watch just to see, okay, has Oklahoma started to take some steps to iron out that other corner?
Yeah, it's necessary. Because the passing offenses are going to continue to get better as you go along this season, whether it's Texas or UCF showed that they've got a really good passing game. Cincinnati's got a pretty good passing game early in the season. It's early. A lot of things could change, and we might be overreacting to week one. Probably a little bit I am. But, yeah, you got to find somebody. And, again, Gentry Williams has that athleticism, has that speed, and the tenacity to be a lockdown corner outside. You got to find those guys. And Oklahoma has gone too long without a stud cornerback on the outside. It's time to break that trend right now. Anything else that you're kind of looking for? I feel like just in general, do a lot of what you did last week. Get off to a fast start, play quick, make the easy things happen, and execute. And, it was as simple as that against Arkansas State. If it comes down to that against SMU, it should be another comfortable win for the Sooners.
Yeah, I think we'll talk more about this as the week rolls along, and maybe we can deep dive kind of exactly what this means, but just show me that week one wasn't a mirage. Big
Right.
picture, all things encompassing. Show me it wasn't a mirage. Show me that it wasn't Arkansas State. The injuries, there's a couple that we don't think are too severe, but how are they impacting things? Could they impact things? We'll tell you about that right after we tell you how to get things situated. These days, every new potential hire, it can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and you want to be not 90%, not 95%, no, 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. It's so easy to create a free job post at LinkedIn Jobs. You just add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. They've got simple tools with the screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. And that's why the people you should be listening to, small businesses, rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So Drake Stoops, we're told from Brent Venables, right? He probably could have gone back in there. Dasan McCullough, we're told from Brent Venables, ankle, but don't believe it's of the high ankle variety. And yet, if I'm Brent Venables, if I'm Oklahoma, don't have to rush those guys back, we hope, this week versus SMU. You hope that you don't need to do that. So with the understanding that both guys might play, okay, first and foremost, right? Play along with, follow this little hypothetical for me. Let's say they don't. Let's say Oklahoma takes the caution route. How does it impact this week?
Well, let's start with wide receiver first. I think we got a really good indication of how that impacts the snap delineation and who's going to get opportunities. It's Gavin Freeman first up and Jaquays Petaway as well, and they're going to rotate both those guys, and you're going to see very effective play out of both those guys. Guys that can get open, they can make something happen after the catch. They've got the speed and the athleticism to make guys miss on the outside and make big plays out of short completions. So I think you feel good about what you've got behind Drake Stoops because of what we've seen out of those guys and the buzz that they created all fall and summer and to Gavin, back in the spring even. Cheetah's a little bit different. You've got Justin Harrington, who's your starter. If you do miss Dasan McCullough, it means you're going to have to go a little bit deeper into the well at your Cheetah depth chart. And that probably means a little bit more Peyton Bowen at Cheetah, or maybe some more Reggie Pearson at Cheetah. So that'll be interesting. And given the coverage requirements that are required of the Cheetah, and also the pass rush, it'll be fascinating to see how they decide to fill those rotational snaps if Dasan McCullough doesn't go. But again, you got your starter, Justin Harrington's there. You've got capable options behind him. Again, Reggie Pearson, Peyton Bowen. I think Kip Lewis could potentially be a guy that could factor in at Cheetah more just because of his athleticism and his play speed and the way he's just a playmaker out there. It wouldn't surprise me in one bit to see him get some snaps at that spot. So I think, okay, I feel better. I feel most comfortable about wide receiver just because of the depth across the board and what they have as slot wide receiver options than maybe I do at Cheetah. But all things go like they're supposed to, then you should be able to rotate some guys and feel pretty good about that.
Well, and the other names, a couple of them anyways, that we didn't see in week one because of the injury situation. Again, sounds like he was precautionary with both R. Mason Thomas and Gavin Sawchuk. So those guys returning. Let's take the flip into this equation here. R. Mason Thomas, to me, I mean, look, I know, John, this is like the way I feel about Andrell Anthony after 1 week. That's how John felt about R. Mason Thomas throughout the entirety of the offseason. This guy is going to be a dude. He's going to be a dude. He's going to be a dude. So I'm with you. I think that, obviously that just ramps up the depth that you have outside. It gives you one more name that you feel like you can really, really trust that we've seen go get after it outside. And oh, by the way, I can't wait to see what a year older, a year stronger, a year wiser looks like for R. Mason Thomas. So that's a substantial return if you get it. And Gavin Sawchuk, just the electricity, John. I think we saw a lot of good with Barnes, with Walker, with Majors, Smothers, Hicks, everybody. And yet there's like a little bit different electricity, big play ability to Sawchuk. So those two guys potentially returning could be, I think, substantial for Oklahoma.
Well, it brings a lot of juice back onto the football field, whether it's R. Mason Thomas off the edge, because you don't really have anybody else like him that's as twitchy and quick off the line of scrimmage as he is. And then again, with Gavin Sawchuk, yeah, Dalen Smothers is a fast dude and he's a big play, in the making. He just doesn't have as much experience as Sawchuk does. And we've seen what Sawchuk can do with the opportunity he got in the Cheez-It Bowl. So I think getting those two guys back, it just increases your team speed and increases your playmaking ability. What was the thing that came out of Butch Jones' comments? They were a lot faster on the field than what we saw on tape, meaning the play speed for this team is much faster than what it was a year ago. And then you add a guy like R. Mason Thomas to your defensive line rotation. You add a guy like Gavin Sawchuk to your running back rotation, and the speed just continues to get amplified. And I mean, it's like showing up to a race and everybody's driving, Ford F-150, and you roll off a couple Lamborghinis off the truck and you're ready to roll. Like, that's just what it's like when you show up with R. Mason, with Gavin Sawchuk. And I think it's going to create a lot of opportunity, not only for those guys to make plays, but people around them to make plays as well.
No, it's exciting to think about that. And hopefully, big takeaway on the injury front is all of these names that we've discussed can get back into the fold healthy for Oklahoma would be a nice sign for the Sooners.
Well, and good news is no serious injuries at this point, aside from the DJ Graham surgery that we talked about yesterday. But as far as like key role players on the depth chart, the 1, 2, 3 deep, you're not really seeing much of that just yet. So hopefully, fingers crossed, get good injury luck throughout this season. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef, myself at John9Williams, and the show is at Locked On Sooners. Check us out on Facebook as well. Until next time, where we will break down more of SMU, give you our keys to the game and predictions for week 2. He's Josh. I'm John. Boomer Sooner.